Um, so as I was just saying, I am expecting a few more people. I will let them in as more people arrive, but we have had a few last minute cancellations as well, inevitably. I was also saying, if you're having your lunch, that's fine. If you're working from home and there are children, please, don't worry about that. This is all part of our working women working lives these days, so that's all absolutely fine. So a couple of quick things before I start. Those of you who worked with me before know that I work in Oxford. You'd think would be very, very well connected, but it does have a habit occasionally of the internet going down. I've got a backup, so if I do go down, just bear with me, and hopefully I'll be back up and running very soon. And I will send out notes and references. So I do tend to reference quite a lot of source materials. I will send that out in an email to you, so don't feel that you've got to furiously scribble down everything that I'm saying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the screen and explain to you what the session is about. So first of all, can I just double check? Everyone, thumbs up. Everyone see that, the shared screen? Excellent. Okay. So in a minute, I'm going to talk about my why I'm here, and then why I'm going to structure the session in the way that it is, and what I'm focusing on. Then we'll look at ways of improving focus, confidence, what you might think about prioritizing, looking after your well-being, and how you'll actually commit to doing these things, so that hopefully at the end of this webinar, there is a clear sort of plan of action. So first of all, why? Why am I here? I'm here partly because I've been that woman. I have spent a lot of time in leadership management roles as an entrepreneur, bringing up children. And I used to think that if I could just find more time, that would enable me to get more done. And then along the way, having children, hitting the menopause, just getting older, has made me realize that actually it's not about ever trying to find more time. The to-do list never seems to get any shorter. It's about how I manage my time, how I manage my approaches to what I do with my time, and how I look after myself. So I have a particular passion about supporting working women, because I think that gender equality is a really important thing that we should all be striving for. It's good for women, it's good for society, and it's good for the economy. And if you need convincing, or if you know of other people who might need convincing, this woman, Jill Whitty-Collins, she gives a far better, she spent a whole book explaining why it makes sense for there to be more gender equality. So it's something that I feel really passionate about. And where I come in is that I think there's some really interesting work to be done around time management. Yes, to improve focus and productivity. And yes, there are a whole raft of techniques and ideas, and I will share some of those with you, but not just to make you work smarter and do more, to free up time for you. A lot of you, and we'll come to that in a moment, have written in responses to why you're here. And in order for us to achieve the changes that we want to see, we have to carve out time for us. Time to stop, time to think, time to reflect, time to learn, time to look after ourselves. So for me, time management is yes, it's about increasing productivity, but it's in order to give you more time back. We know that women tend to pick up more of the domestic chores. They have less time than men typically. And so this is about trying to make sure you can steal back bits of time for you to do what you want to do for you and to look after you. So that's why I'm here. I just want you to take a moment and reflect on, why are you here? And I sent you some questions. I asked you, how did you feel at the end of 2021? And from those of you who responded, there was a mix, but more of you were feeling tired, stressed, probably a bit more like this woman, some feeling you know, pretty good, but a lot going on. But for some of you, this perhaps characterizes how you were feeling at the end of 2021. And so then I asked, you know, how would you like to feel at the end of 2022? And a lot of you talked about wanting there to be change, wanting to feel more optimistic, feel more relaxed, feel more confident, and to feel more in control. So that's what this session is going to try and help you do, is to look at how can you make some plans so that you finish 2022 feeling a lot better than you perhaps did at the end of 2021. So let's start first of all with focus. And what I've tried to do, I have got a whole raft of techniques and strategies that I could be sharing with you. I've tried to stick to 3 for every point that I want to make. So as I say, I can absolutely refer to other things if anyone wants to ask me, but so 3 ways that you might improve focus. And the first one is the very well-known Pomodoro technique. I say very well known, and lots of you may be familiar with it, but it's still quite surprising how many people aren't. And I have found this to be a really, really helpful way when there are tasks that I'm not looking forward to break it down into 25 minutes. Now, it's named Pomodoro. It was invented by an Italian who timed himself on a kitchen timer clock that looked like a tomato. So that's where it came from. And he would set himself 25 minutes. You would just say to yourself, I'm going to spend 25 minutes on this task. And you get rid of all other distractions and you just work for 25 minutes and then you take a break. And then you repeat as necessary. And it's a way of, as I say, trying to get around procrastination, putting off those really, really big tasks. All you're doing is committing to 25 minutes. What's interesting is once you've been through 1 or 2 cycles of 25 minutes, you're quite often in the flow, you've broken the back of the worst of it, and that can help the motivation to keep going. So that's probably my number 1 tip around improving focus. The second tip I wanted to share with you, and those of you who've worked with me before know that I've talked about this, plan your day the night before. So your working day starts whenever you finish your working day the previous day. So maybe the last thing you do is plan, what are the big tasks that I'm going to use the Pomodoro technique for tomorrow? It may be that you've committed to doing some exercise first thing in the morning. Can you put those exercise clothes out? It might be putting out your work clothes. So anything that means that when you start your morning, you're not battling with, what have I got to do? You're able to go straight into your working day feeling incredibly focused because you've planned it the night before. And then the third piece of advice inevitably is around taming your devices, if that's a problem for you. I mean, there's a lot of people writing about how to make sure that you're in control of your mobile phone rather than the other way round, about how to stop notifications or control notifications. And again, if that's a big problem for you, there's a number of books and articles that I will reference in the notes around tips and strategies to help you make sure that you are in charge of your devices and not the other way round. So, confidence. I think this is a massively underrepresented aspect of working women's lives and time management and well-being. Because if you are plagued with voices in your head, if you are plagued with guilt, if you are fueled by fears of things going wrong and an inability to try something different and take risks, that is going to slow you down and that's going to impact on your well-being. So if you are somebody who has a lot of noise in your head, maybe think about what can you do to build up your confidence so that you're letting go of those things that slow you down, that make you hesitate before making a decision, that make you hesitate before speaking up. And it doesn't only slow you down, it also affects how you are perceived. And Catty Kay and Claire Shipman wrote an article about the confidence gap between men and women, and pointed out that confidence is often mistaken for competence. So men often appear more confident than women and are therefore perceived as being more competent. So that's why this one matters so much for us working women. So what can you do if boosting your confidence is something you want to address? So the first thing is keeping a confidence journal. I don't know about other people, but I have a rubbish memory. And I often forget lovely things that people say about me and my work. And so last year I picked up this idea, and every time something positive happened, where somebody got in touch with me after a coaching session or after a training session and said, you know, thank you, that really made a difference, or, you know, you are so good at whatever, I would keep a record of it. And on those days when I'm having a wobble, when I think, who am I to think that I can do this? Who am I to go out there? There are so many other people who are better at this than me, and I might be holding myself back. I go back to that confidence journal, and it reminds me of all the positives and why I do deserve a place at the table, why I do deserve to put myself forward, why I should have the courage to take that risk. So that's one of the first things that I found particularly useful for me. The second thing is pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. So many of us will be familiar with this concept of sticking inside our comfort zones, just doing the things that we're already really good at. But actually what we know is if you push yourself even just a little bit out of your comfort zone and do something that you felt a bit uncomfortable about doing, it can really help to boost your confidence. And that doesn't have to be a work thing. It could be something that you do in your own life, in your personal life. So it could be just something that you've been meaning to do. So for example, tomorrow, I can't sing to save my life. I've joined a tuneless choir. It's really, really going to push me out of my comfort zone, but I suspect I'm going to come out of it feeling much better for it. So, and that obviously has a knock-on effect onto the rest of our lives. And then the other thing is around, so the third tip is about trying to rewire our brains around how we feel about rejection and failure. These can often really, really knock our confidence. But actually there are things that we can do, that we can tell ourselves about rejection and failure. We can tell ourselves that a failure is just an indication that we showed up, that we tried something, and it's an opportunity for us to learn. Rejection, again, is an indication that you are trying. People don't get rejected if they're not trying. And again, forgive me for resharing this. Some of you may already be familiar with this, but there is just one of the most heartwarming TED Talks called What I Learned. Excuse me a moment, I'm just going to let somebody else in. What I Learned from 100 Days of Rejection. It's about 12 minutes long, and it is absolutely glorious and life-affirming. And it's about this man called Xi Zhang, who set himself out to try 100 days of being rejected, and it's what he learned from it. I'll put that in the notes that I email out to you, and it is a glorious, glorious watch. So again, that might be something that you might like to consider doing. I'm just going to pause there a moment and welcome Suman and just double check. Is everyone all right so far? Yep, thumbs up. I do have a tendency to throw a lot of information out. Am I talking too fast? Is it okay? Okay, all right. So I've got a few more slides to share, and then I want to open it up for discussion. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is around how to prioritize. So there's a saying, what will make your boat go faster? So if your work or your career is this boat, what will actually make it go faster to get to those trees, to get to the other side? And those are quite often the really big tasks. So they won't be clearing your inbox. They won't be, I don't know, there won't be a lot of the things on your to-do list. So they are the things that are going to make a real difference, to have a real impact on your work. And your working day or your working week should be guided by you identifying up to 3 things that will make your boat go faster. So again, at the end of a working day or at the end of a working week, can you reflect and think, tomorrow or next week, what are the 3 things that I must make sure that I do in order to really make progress in my work and in my career? And a strategy that I have used to help me get rid of the things that will slow me down. So imagine this boat is not going to go that fast if it's weighted down. So it's not going to go very fast if you're weighed down by lack of confidence. We've already talked about that. And it's also not going to go very fast if you are distracted by a lot of things that are on your to-do list or that you do that shouldn't be. So it might be that for you, it's useful to entertain the concept of the to-don't list. And again, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with this, the to-don't list is the things that you're going to try and prepare yourself in advance to go, I'm not going to say yes to that. Just because I'm in a meeting and somebody says, would somebody volunteer to do this? And you know that you're always the person who says yes, and then you bitterly regret it. Put that on your to-don't list. I won't immediately volunteer. Maybe it'll be, I won't immediately leap to do the washing up. Maybe it'll be, you know, I won't say I'm going to go to that party because, and then decide nearer the time that I'm going to cancel and then feel guilty about it. Maybe the better thing is to make sure that you're being honest about what you can take on and what you want to commit to, and saying no to things you don't, you know, in your heart of hearts, you don't want to do. So having a to-don't list can help you throw those things off the boat that might otherwise weigh you down. But in terms of prioritizing, I think it would be a tragedy if, and this is what so many work management books seem to be about, that it's all about making that progress and getting there really, really fast. And this is why I've used this picture, because what a tragedy if you didn't enjoy the view along the way. So what can you do to prioritize your own well-being and enjoyment so that it isn't just about getting from A to B as effectively as possible? It's also about making sure that you're taking some time out to enjoy that process. So let's talk about that. So what can we do to look after ourselves? Well-being has really become much more prominent since the pandemic, and I think whilst we might all regret the reasons why that happened, I think a greater focus on our mental health and well-being is actually a really positive thing. And there's a document on the government website that talks about 5 steps to improving well-being. And they're about connecting, being active, taking notice, keeping learning, and giving. So that's what, you know, various people have decided are 5 really important ways that we can look after our well-being. So In terms of my tips to you, some 3 tips of things that you could do to address well-being. The first one I want to talk about is around noticing. So there's been a lot of research that highlights the value of noticing the positives around you. There's a poet called Ross Gay, apologize, and he's written a book called The Book of Delights, and he spent a year trying to notice things, tiny things that delighted him. Anything from enjoying a cup of tea to clean sheets to a leaf falling down, or whatever. Similar to that is the idea of keeping a gratitude journal. This is something that I've actually been doing for about just over a year, actually, when I noticed my own well-being going down due to the pandemic. And every day I write 3 things that I'm grateful for from the day before. It can be incredibly short, or it can be a bit more involved, but I try to make sure that I start each day being grateful for 3 things in my life. And I have found that that has really, really helped my own well-being. So noticing in some sort of gratitude journal. The second thing I want to recommend, and again, I think this is more problematic for women than it is for men, it's about having mindful, not guilty pleasures. There's a lot of acceptance amongst women in particular that we have guilty pleasures, that piece of cake that we shouldn't have, or that glass of wine that we shouldn't have. But equally, it could be that walk I took at lunchtime when I should have been at my desk doing more. And I want to suggest to you that in order to be looking after yourself, which should be such a high priority, make them mindful pleasures. Have that, if you're going to have that piece of cake, enjoy it, be mindful about it, don't feel guilty about it. If you're going to go for that walk, enjoy it, don't worry about the things that will be at your desk. They'll still be there when you come back. But this is all about you trying to make sure that you are getting moments of enjoyment into your day. But at the most extreme, and this is how I've ended up signing up to the Tuneless Choir, is what Dr. Laurie Santos and Catherine Price have come up with, which is called Fun-terventions. And Catherine Price has written a book and has done research to show that if we make sure that we have fun interventions in our lives, it will actually improve our productivity. So she talks about when we're younger, we often do things just for the fun of it, and how as we get older, we seem to get more and more removed from those things. We seem to forget sometimes how to have fun without feeling guilty about it. But she makes a very strong case for the value of putting fun-terventions back into our lives, and that actually she believes that her own productivity increased as she did more things that brought her fun. So these are my calls to action for you. And a lot of them are about starting small. And I love this. I've stolen the how can you make tomorrow 1% better than today from 2 people called Helen Tucker and Sarah Ellis, who run Amazing If, and they've just brought out a book called You Coach You. And it's a really, really powerful book. I strongly recommend it. And one of the questions they have is, at the end of the day, think about how can I make tomorrow 1% better than today? And I think it's that keeping it really small that is really, really valuable. And then what one thing will you try to improve your focus and productivity from the ideas that I've suggested, or maybe there's already been something that you've come across before that you want to try. And then what one thing will you try to improve your well-being and enjoyment? Now, the critical thing is, how are you going to try to make that habitual? So how will you make sure that the good intentions I hope you leave this session with will turn into a commitment to habits? And there've been a lot of books written recently around the importance of making tiny changes, making small habitual changes. And one of the ideas is to associate something that you're going to do with something that you already do. So if there's something that you can think of, when I clean my teeth, I will write a gratitude journal, plan my mindful pleasure. When I make my first cup of tea, I will. When I go to bed, I will put my phone on airplane mode, you know, whatever it is. So whatever it is that you want to change, you attach it to an existing habit. That's what BJ Fogg, who is a behavioral scientist, has recommended. And again, his book, Tiny Habits, has got loads and loads of recommendations of how to attach new habits to existing ones. Then the second thing that I think might help is really trying to learn from what works and what doesn't. As you try whatever it is you're going to commit to, try and find a little bit of time attached to that thing. Find a little bit of time to think about, what did I learn from that? Did it work for me? Didn't it work for me? What got in the way of making it happen? What can I do differently next time? Again, coming back to the government's 5 steps to well-being, continual learning is a very, very important part of that. So how can you learn more about yourself as you try these things in your world? And then the third thing is around accountability. And that lots of people talk about the value of having somebody who will hold you to account, having an accountability buddy. So there may be somebody that you could ask, you could tell, I'm going to commit to doing this thing. Please, would you check in with me every now and then about whether or not I'm doing this, or I'm going to contact you every now and then and tell you about the progress that I'm making. So that's the end of me talking. I just wanted to say that I do a lot of work around training and coaching with organizations and with individuals, because a lot of this takes time, as I've said before, and it takes some unpicking. So if you're interested in finding out more about how I might work to support you or your organization, I devise courses that I can, as I say, I can deliver for organizations. I mostly work online, so that makes it very possible for me to work anywhere. And equally, I do individual coaching as well. So if that's of interest, please do get in touch. So let me stop share. And I'm just going to ask if anyone would be willing to offer up for accountability one thing that they would like to commit to doing to try and bring about change from between now and the end of 2022. I had to think then where we are. So would anyone like to share or put in the chat box something they would be willing to articulate that they want to change, and they'd like to say it out loud, because that's a way of having it being of making yourself accountable. I can see a lot of thoughtful faces.
Oh, I'll go.
Oh, thank you, Kate. Okay, go for it.
When you're a facilitator as well, you're like, someone needs to talk. So I think I've heard about Pomodoro method twice now, and actually my line manager's having a go at it too. So in terms of accountability, I think that might be quite a useful thing, because we could check in with each other about how it's going as well. Okay. And I actually think, and connected to that, planning my day, including the things I'm doing for myself as well as the other things on the to-do list. So that's something I need to work on, actually, is how I note down the stuff that I'm doing, because it's just this big sprawly mess. So yeah, okay. Avoiding the sprawly mess would be great.
So Kate, how will you've talked about liaising with your line manager, which is great on the Pomodoro technique. So there's some ability there. Who can you share some commitments to doing more for you during the day with?
I think probably my husband, actually, because he that is ready to help me do that. So it's just making sure that I don't make excuses for myself, I think.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Kate. Anyone else willing to? Yes, Elle.
I'm very similar. I did set up an app on my computer called Timeout, which is basically a Pomodoro technique app. Well, you know, it is an app, and it basically says, and then you can skip the break, or you can delay it by 5 minutes or by 10 minutes when you do it. But I haven't been using it on a regular basis, and I kept on disabling it. So I think one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to make use of that, especially in the morning, because that's when I work best. And I'm going to try. I've started yoga with Adrienne, 30-day yoga journey.
Yep.
I've done 4 days. It's only day 80, but and I felt guilty, and I was like, well, I haven't kept up. But one of my friends just said, no, if you say you're going to do it in 45 days or you're going to do it in 60 days, at least you're going to do it. Because I've tried to start before and just given up, because I've been getting these emails every day, and I'm like, I haven't done this day, I haven't done that day. So one of the other things I'm going to do is just get through it. It doesn't matter if it takes me 3 months, then at least I've done it. But I think, like Kate said, I'm going to try and put time in my diary. And actually, my husband's very good at doing that and going out for runs. It's a bit difficult we've got a 16-month-old. So he's only in part-time childcare, so it's really difficult to try and find time to put that time aside. And he's very good at doing it, and I think I have to be better at doing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if somebody's better at doing something, look at what it is they're doing and think, why can't I do that as well? And I think
being selfish and not feeling guilty are the two things.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because he's a man, but it is. I really feel what you were saying about that guilt, even for going out for a walk for half an hour. Why I should be at my desk, I should be chained to my desk, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
but that's how I have always felt like that.
So I did wonder whether to talk a separate slide just about guilt. And there was a podcast I was listening to last week, and this person, Dr. Bill Marshall, again, I'll find the podcast and put it in the notes that I send out. And he said the biggest thing that's getting in our way is guilt. And I think it is that's a whole other topic around that. And I think a lot of us have got really big hang-ups around what a productive working mother, woman, whatever, should look like, and trying to get rid of that guilt when we're just being human beings. And I think celebrating the things we do achieve rather than the things we don't. Again, there was quite a nice idea around the to-do list. You don't write a to-do list in advance, you write a to-done list. So you celebrate the things that you have achieved. So those days when you do yoga with Adrienne, you celebrate the fact that you have done it rather than fret about the fact, those days when you didn't do it. So great. And again, who will help hold you accountable?
Well, I don't want it to be my husband, because he nags me to do stuff. So but I've got my friend Liz. She I haven't seen her for a long time, but she should be able to fire WhatsApp.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm aware we've got about another 3-4 minutes. So would anyone else like to share with us what they're going to commit to? Hannah, I'm going to pick on you just because you're a familiar face. So
sorry.
There's 2 Hannahs actually, but Hannah, okay, Hannah, you've gone for it. Hannah,
I was going to say, am I pulling a face?
Hannah M, you're off the spot for the moment, but I'm coming for you.
Okay. I was actually typically doing what I always do and try and do 2 things at once by messaging people about something later on today. So one of the main reasons I am here is because I got diagnosed with ADHD, which makes everything a little bit harder to take hold of. So I found I've done the Pomodoro thing before, but I kind of get a bit sidetracked. So I have to really focus in. But a lot of what you're saying about the guilty pleasures really hits home to me. So that's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay. And is there anyone you can get to hold you accountable for trying to commit to having mindful rather than guilty pleasures?
I'm going to recruit a friend. Yes. I live currently with someone I don't really know very well. They're not very chatty. They're at work when I'm awake and then not when. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I have to be someone from outside of the house.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm gonna ask them to check in on me every week and see how I'm getting on. But I've decided I'm gonna put some things around my desk as reminders, especially the 5 things of well-being, and maybe even my list of achievements and stuff like that. So
yeah, no, really good,
visually around
really
me.
good idea, having visual reminders around desks. Yeah, great. Thank you. So Hannah N.
I think the Pomodoro technique I do find really helpful, or just setting myself time limits. But like you, Elle, I think I've sort of used it occasionally, and I think I should embrace that a bit more and say, no, this is a proper technique. It's not me just with my kitchen timer. It's something genuinely useful, because it's because otherwise I just get distracted by too many different things, like you, Hannah, I think. And it's saying it's okay not to look at anything else over those 25 minutes and trying to force myself to just do one thing at once. I'm always got about 6 things on the go, and it's just it's just so unproductive, isn't it? Yeah. But part of that is also having a really, really good think about if there are things that I'm doing that I just shouldn't be doing. And it's not quite as simple as delegating, actually, because I'm quite good at that, actually. Over the years, I've got much better out of necessity. But trying to focus in on what is the most important thing to do today, because sometimes that is, and I can get a bit lost, I think, in the idea that is, but I do need to clear my inbox because I need my head to be clear, and I just can't get on with the much more important thing until I do that. But then I don't achieve that either. So it is trying to sort of work within what works for me and what is actually genuinely a priority for the organisation or the work that needs doing, and keeping. I look back at something that I was obviously doing much better at, or much better at creating a visual reminder of. And just my phrase of this time last year was "eat the frog, not the elephant." And I really need to remind myself of that big time.
Yeah, great. And in terms of the whole notion of zero inbox, the book that Oliver Burkeman has written, 4,000 Weeks, Your Time and How to Use It. Yeah. He just says the more you clear your inbox, the more comes back into your inbox. So yeah,
it doesn't go away.
Okay, Heather, I'm very keen that I just hear from you before we round up. So is there anything you would like to articulate out loud that?
I might just have to start the day with a walk, because that always clears the headspace, and it feels like I've not quite just fallen out of bed and fallen into the living room, which I currently do. Yeah. It's like doing I work from home, so it's like doing the commute to work, but there's nowhere to go, so you just walk around and come back. But it sort of does help. And then I suppose, I guess you sort of start the day with the things you don't like, but I've got a tendency for them to take too much of the day, so I'm sort of wanting to get onto the things that I do like doing, but I'm still stuck on the things I don't want to do because they never actually get done. So.
And is there anyone you can get to hold you accountable to commit? So you're just going to have to write it on. I do like Hannah D's idea about writing things.
It might take a few different people. I suppose different people, different. You can't have one person who's going to be make sure you're doing everything. It's a bit unfair, isn't it? So I suppose you just find different people in different walks of life to do different things.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, well, we are at time, and I was very keen to keep it to 40 minutes because you are all very busy people, but I do hope that's been useful in terms of sharing ideas and strategies that either other people write about and have researched, or that I found helpful for myself. Any questions after the session, please do get in touch, and I will send out a follow-up email with the notes and all of the all of the references, and good luck with the things you've offered to be held accountable on. I hope you're able to make some progress on those. So really nice to have met you all, and take care. Suman, if you want to stay on a little bit, because I know you've missed some of it, so I can just very quickly do a quick catch up. And yeah, so yes, take care everyone else, and as I say, I will follow up with notes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
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 Happy New Year, everyone.